Today, we dive into the life and ethics of the richest man in America during the Gilded Age, the Railroad King, the Commodore himself, Cornelius Vanderbilt. The question posed here is one that's very common when looking at and talking about the Gilded Age. Was this industrialist more of a captain of industry or a robber baron? Well, Vanderbilt was certainly one of the robber barons of the time, because of his treatment of his workers, his lack of philanthropy, and his laissez-faire beliefs. But let's first take a look at the early life of Vanderbilt. So, what shaped Cornelius into the robber baron he became? Well, at age 11, he dropped out of school to begin working at his father's ferry company. Then, in 1810, at 16 years old and with a $100 loan from his parents, he began his own ferry company. By maintaining the lowest rates of all the competition, young Cornelius rose to the top. At the start of the War of 1812, he gets a contract from the U.S. government to be the sole supplier to the forts, which was very beneficial as there were many forts arising in the East Coast at the time. He then develops a steamboating business and developed a journey from the East Coast to California during the height of the gold rush. As the Civil War approaches, Vanderbilt realizes that the real transportational developments are happening on land, and he begins his own railroad company. From here, his growth is exponential, and he became the Railroad King. Vanderbilt has been quoted as saying, "The public be damned," and "There is no friendship in trade." These quotes show his harsh and capitalistic attitude. His other beliefs are explained in the interview we've received from a tour guide in the Vanderbilt mansion.
Well, certainly any businessman is in it for the money, and he is certainly going to make a lot of money because that's what every businessman wants. But that's not his only particular avenue. What's even more interesting with a man like the Commodore, and he's no different than any other robber baron of the time, is that his goal is to get rid of the competition, which again is really no different than today. I mean, if you can get rid of the competition, that's the more money. Does he manipulate the stock market? Back then he does, and he does everything in the realm of the rules of the day.
A major sign that Vanderbilt was a robber baron was seen in the treatment of his workers. Like all robber barons of the time, his focus was not on his employees' well-being, but purely on making money for himself. He did not spend any money improving conditions or putting safety measures in place, which were especially needed because he was in the railroad industry and conditions were very dangerous for workers. Our tour guide also has a note on this subject.
As far as treating workers, the Commodore is again no different than any other businessman of the time. You are used, and when you are no longer needed, you're gone. He's not treating workers. There's no rules. There's no labor rules at all. There's no unions. If you got hurt, you were forgotten. That's just the way it was. He's not the only businessman of the time that's doing that, though. But his main goal is for the business.
The most notable accomplishment of Vanderbilt's life is the production of the New York Central Railroad Company, which he created by buying up all the smaller railroads in the country at the time. This idea of horizontal integration was very popular amongst the robber barons of the time, and worked very well for Vanderbilt, as he was already wealthy from his past business adventures. This allowed for him to completely control the prices of fares without worry of competition. Lastly, unlike most of the captains of industry at the time, Vanderbilt did not contribute his money to the greater good. He didn't even give it back to his family. The only time he gave money to society was on his deathbed, when his friend was starting a college. This college ends up being Vanderbilt University. Even so, he did not give a fraction of his wealth to this college.
Well, as far as him giving anything to charity, that's one thing he does not do until the end of his life, when he is kind of approached by a friend of his as he's on his dying bed, And there's really nothing that he has given any money to. The perception is that this man is a ruthless businessman. He treats what I say everybody equally, which is not well, including family members. But he does end up giving money to what becomes Vanderbilt University.
Cornelius Vanderbilt was most certainly a robber baron during the Gilded Age. He had awful working conditions for his labor forces, gave almost nothing back to society, and held selfish, unethical beliefs about business. Thank you all for watching our documentary.